Okay, so today we're going to be looking at how to analyze a political cartoon. And I decided to use a political cartoon that focuses on the Ebola crisis that is currently happening. It's December 2014, so that's time appropriate for right now. If you ever wanted to update the lesson, I would suggest using a political cartoon more catered to whatever time frame that you're working within. So in my case, I picked the Ebola cartoon. So as we know, there are 6 tools with which to analyze a political cartoon. So we're going to take this political cartoon through the 6 different scopes. So the first one, as we see, is symbols. And so there's a couple different symbols within here. The first one I can see is this burger, and of course the fries and the drink down here with it. So I would say that these are symbolic of fast food and the poor American diet, which, as you can see, is responsible for obesity, which is responsible for American deaths. So if we go a little bit to the right, you can see a cigarette here. Of course, cigarettes is not the only way that Americans consume tobacco every year. You know, of course, there's cigars, chewing tobacco, what have you. But in this case, the cigarette is symbolic of American tobacco consumption. We shift a little more to the right. You can see this can in the character's hand. And it's an aluminum can, but it's labeled with the word brews, and that is another slang term for beer. So that's, you know, of course there's liquor as well, but in this case, American alcohol consumption is represented by this beer can. Then if we go a little further down, I want to draw attention to the USA on this shirt. I think that that is symbolic of this person being representative of the American public. We know that that is an American. They're wearing a United States of America t-shirt. So if we want to go to our sheet here and take down some notes, so symbols that we saw. So we saw the fast food, so the burger, the fries, and the drink. And we know that that is symbolic of poor American diet, i.e. fast food. And we're also looking at the cigarette, and we thought the cigarette was symbolic of American tobacco consumption. Alright, go back. So then we also had the beer can in his hand, so we know the beer can symbolic of American alcohol consumption. And the final symbol was that USA labeling on the t-shirt, and we know that that USA t-shirt means that the character is part of the American population. Alright, so the next tool of analyzing the cartoon is exaggeration. So as we know, exaggeration is when the feature is overdone, and that's done to draw attention to something. So if we go back to the cartoon, clear out this. So I would say that the exaggeration that's done in this case is the expression on the character's face. This is an expression of panic, and I think this is done to convey American panic over the Ebola outbreak. Clear that out a little bit. Okay. Alright, so we're going to go back. So the exaggeration aspect that we're looking at is the panicked expression. So the next tool of analysis we're going to use is labeling. So that's literally the text that is happening within the picture. So let me try to take off these circles. Alright, so the labeling in this case, that's, you know, obviously this text that's up here, obesity, tobacco, alcohol, that would be the label on the beer can, brews, that makes it an a alcoholic drink as opposed to, you know, a soda or water or anything like that. Let's see, the label of the fries, letting you know that that's fries. The label of USA on the t-shirt, letting you know that that is an American. And also, I want to draw attention to this super big that is written on the beverage. I think that draws attention to, you know, the American consumerism culture and, you know, that overconsumption and, you know, that needing to immediate satisfaction and needing more and more and more. So I think that's common, that label is drawing attention to that. And of course the final label contained in the picture is right here, the giant Ebola text, and that's of course drawing attention to the issue that is being discussed by the cartoon. So if we want to go over to our notes, so labeling, so we looked at the label on the beer can, the label on the fries, and the label on the shirt. Ebola being the topic. Then, as I said, I also wanted to draw attention to that super big, that text there that is, like I said, I think labeling that American consumerism culture. Alright, so the next tool that we can analyze the cartoon from is from its ironic angle. So clear all of that out. Alright, so as we know, irony is that disparity between reality and your expectations, or, you know, what you think things should be. So the irony that I see going on in the cartoon is that this American is freaking out about Ebola. You know, we know that from the panic-stricken expression and the word bubble. So he's freaking out about getting sick and dying from Ebola exposure, yet he is knowingly endangering himself with these, you know, with this poor diet leading to obesity, with the tobacco leading to cancer and death that way, and to alcohol consumption leading to death as well. So we want to take note. So the irony here is death threat from Ebola causing panic, but threat from poor diet, tobacco, and alcohol ignored. So our second to last tool of analysis is going to be the analogy in the cartoon. So if we go back, as we know, an analogy is a comparison of two things. So what I think is being compared here is, like we were just discussing, you know, Ebola as a death threat versus fast food, tobacco, and alcohol. Even though, as we can see, the figures of death caused by the other three are pretty staggering. So if we want to go back and take note of that, so the analogy is Ebola, capital Ebola, versus poor diet, tobacco, and alcohol as threat to American health. Alright, and so the final tool of analysis that we're going to look at this cartoon through to analyze it is the argument. So when we look at this cartoon, a good way to convey or to figure out what the argument is, which of course is what statement is the cartoon trying to convey. That would be the argument. So a good way to tell what the argument is to have your analogy and then because. So your analogy plus because. So in this case, our analogy was a comparison of Ebola and tobacco, alcohol, and poor diet as a threat to American health. So poor diet, tobacco, and alcohol are as imminent a threat to health as Ebola, but Americans act like those aren't a problem. So that would be the argument being made here. So we have now gone through our 6 different tools of analysis for political cartoons, and we have broken it down. So again, the argument here was that poor diet, tobacco, and poor diet, tobacco, and alcohol are threat to American health, just like Ebola. But no one panics about those.